Okay. Well, everyone, it's my pleasure to welcome Julia Harguindey to the class this afternoon. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, it's very
Uh,
good actually.
so,
I'd say, huh?
luckily you have a video up where I could test it, and your elision from Julia to Harguindey was very nice. So I thought I'd practice. Anyway, it's a pleasure to meet you and to have you here this afternoon. So why don't we start it off with just a brief introduction from you, because we've got a lot of questions about your career, about your studies, about the different competitions you've been a part of, etc. So I'll leave it to you to tell us about yourself.
Great. So yes, as you said, my name is Julia, and I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I see a lot of names that could be maybe Eduardo. I don't know if yeah, and I don't know. You seem Daniel, or you a Spanish speaker? Yeah, cool. So I'm seeing that quickly. I don't know if you're more, but so I was born there. My parents are Argentinian and musicians. My mom is a harpsichord player. My dad is a classical guitarist. So after all, the dictatorship and hyperinflation, my parents decided to leave Argentina, and they had previously lived in a French-speaking place in Belgium. So they decided to go to Montreal to keep with the French-speaking place. So I grew up in Quebec, Montreal, and I'm super lucky because in Montreal there are two excellent schools. One is a elementary school and the other one is a high school where it's all oriented towards music. So when they teach us how to read, they also teach us how to read music, and it seems so natural to. And even in high school, we're already going in tours internationally in France. And so I had a lot of great opportunities. And while I was in high school, I also entered the Montreal Conservatory, where I studied with Mathieu Harel, who is the assistant in the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. So he was the one telling me about Curtis, because he is a Curtis alumni. So he pushed me toward that direction, and I had truly no idea how hard it was to get in. And that's a pure, it's a blessing that I didn't know. And I didn't speak English either. So I just went, and I didn't ask myself too many questions. I just sat there and played. And now that I look back, especially after going to Curtis and seeing how the audition process is extremely difficult to get in, and again, I had no clue. So sometimes it's not that it's like nerve management or stress management. It's just pure, completely innocence. So I didn't know that Matsukawa was Argentinian. So I ended up playing tango because I wanted to play tango in my audition. And then later he told me that he was born in Argentina and we had that in common. So I did my 4 years at Curtis. And when I went back to Montreal and I worked before going to Curtis, I won a job in a regional orchestra in Trois-Rivières, close to Montreal. So I was going back and forth. So I always had a foot in Montreal. So when I went back, I was working with Les Violons du Roi, which is a chamber orchestra there that I love playing with them. They're specialized in Baroque and classical music, and it's a hybrid. They play on goat strings, and it's great, great ensemble. And again, I did some of the competitions that are available there in Montreal and around. So for a small island, Montreal is full of opportunities for musicians. There's a lot of great little ensembles, the orchestras that are there. It's culturally very impressive. So then I worked very hard, and I won this job here in Nashville. At the same time, I won Santa Fe Opera. So I'm principal in Santa Fe Opera. So it's 10 weeks in the summer. And I go between the two. Now for 5 years, I have been doing that. I don't know if to count this year because I was sitting on my sofa, but it's 5 years. So I was very lucky to win this as young as I did, and have wonderful colleagues that keep teaching me. And yeah, that's my journey in general. I'm sure I'll have more questions.
So, tell us a little bit. A lot of the guests that we've had have told us about the last year and how their orchestras handled the pandemic and how they themselves handled their own motivation and keeping practicing. So, while you were on your sofa, how were you how were you staying in touch with your bassoon playing and with your musicianship?
Well, it was a part like special year. Obviously, um, Nashville was the first orchestra to announce that we would not have a season. So everybody was shocked, but then many other orchestra followed. So Santa Fe also canceled. It was a shock. Obviously, when you start being a musician, that's your identity. You start so young. I started playing when I was 12, and I don't remember taking a single break since I was a kid. So actually, it was positive to be able to be forced to take a break. First, I stopped playing and I look back, and we take a lot for granted when we are on stage. And before I was a bassoon player, I played other instruments. I played piano, so I was always on stage. I always assumed that it was normal. My parents were musicians, so I always assumed that it was normal to go on stage and have people clap at you and tell you how good and wonderful you are, and you go home. And that's not normal. We're very lucky. And when we don't have that adrenaline that we get from being on stage, when we don't have that contact with the audience, every night is different. The energy that we give and that we receive is, we are so incredibly lucky. And oftentimes, unfortunately, because we're a bunch of artists with egos, sometimes there is a culture, it's not always that nice on stage. And now with that break, I will very much reconsider the love that I have for this, my instrument, the stage, my colleagues, my work ethic. There's a lot that went on in my head. And obviously, I live in Nashville, so it's Music City. So thankfully, we have the recording gigs. I keep recording for Netflix movies, the music for and video games. There's a lot of that going on here. If I could have an advice now that, and COVID was the great equalizer for everybody. Doesn't matter how great your job is. All of us, we didn't have jobs. And we fall into who are we, and what do we know how to do without the bassoon, without that position? So the skills, since we're young, we're obsessed with our goals. I wanted to be a principal bassoon somewhere in a good orchestra. I did it, and then it goes away. So it's so hyper focused. Sometimes we forget to invest in other skills. So for all of you who are young, things can go wrong, as financially in the orchestras and the world pandemic. We couldn't project and having something like that going on. So a lot of people who are great at computers, I didn't have internet, I didn't have a computer, I didn't know how to copy paste, even though I'm 31. I wasn't into anything like that, because Curtis is a great, unbelievable school, but they form orchestral musicians, and especially principals. And I didn't ask myself too many questions. And now, well, diversify your skills. One day it will be very useful. Be interested in learning different genres of music. People will, like, you are your own little market, be marketable. So that's important, to keep being curious and not only just focus on being the best bassoon player you can be. It's not enough these days. So it's great for those who are able to mix music and be great at the computer, record themselves or market themselves well. So it could be anything, but don't forget to be complete as an artist and as an individual. That will save your life in a moment like this one, for sure.
Yeah, I think we all realized very quickly what we did and did not feel comfortable with when things were locked down, and so that's great advice. You mentioned the recording activities. How what kind of in the best of times? What's the recording industry like in Nashville for you and for other classical musicians? And how did they react to the pandemic?
Well, a lot of the companies were waiting for the vaccine, so we had a moment where nothing was going on. Usually during the year, we are constantly called, and they have our schedule for the symphony. So when they call us, they know that we're available. You can't be like, oh, I have a rehearsal. Like they precisely know that you can be there. So you say yes. And you never know what you're going to be recording. You sit there and they announce you, well, this is for Sony, this is for PlayStation, this is, and you start read as an orchestra. Sometimes they divide it in sections. So all the row of clarinets and bassoon. So especially here, there's so many different styles and genres, country music, jazz, blues. So we're obligated, especially also Nashville does that a lot, and the pops, jazz, and country. So when I was formed as a musician, I was formed in classical music between the period of like late classical. The maximum we did is like a little contemporary, not so much. So it's like I'm formed this. And now I'm like, whoa, I don't know how to approach this jazz piece. So I had to be quickly trained in other genres, and especially in style reading. That was not my thing at first. You have your headphones one ear on, one ear off, and you're multitasking big times, completely different skills to be good at recording. You have microphones everywhere. Your setup needs to be different. You have to be very quick at matching your colleagues. They don't have time. So you have to be good at the first track. You can't also be like, oh, I made a mistake, right? Can we go back? So that was great to have the opportunity to be constantly called for those recording sessions. And now with the vaccine, I see a boom of gigs here. So we have entire movies that will be the animated movies. So that we spend an entire week recording 6 hours a day for those Netflix movies. It's quite fun.
And one other question about an orchestra that's completely different altogether from the studio, Les Violons du Roi. Were you playing period instruments, or were you playing modern bassoon with them playing gut strings? How does that orchestra perform?
That's why I said it's hybrid, and
Okay.
the woodwinds, well, the winds, we're playing in our normal setup, so we're not changing anything. The strings, they have a goat string. Is that it? Goat? No.
Gut.
Gut.
Gut. Right.
Not goat.
It might be from a goat, but right. Well, it's actually probably more from a sheep, but goat's close enough.
Here, going back, you're learning my animals. And I think I'm pretty sure they have Baroque bows as well. And the style of playing for the string is quite Baroque in the style of playing with their bows. So when I was there, I loved playing next to the double bass and the cellos as basso continuo, because then you have to imitate with your ear every single movement that you're doing, especially in Baroque. Nothing is written in your part. They don't tell you when it's going to be long or short. So you have to be completely synced and with the principle to follow the movement. And then it creates a lot of spontaneity in the air and usage of the air that is not mainly when you learn at school is always those romantic long phrases, full vibrato. That's completely different. You have to be such delicate player. And the type of energy they had I'll never forget my years there. It was very, very inspiring.
Well, because we just bought two new Baroque bassoons, and I
Oh,
have to I have to play the Foch concerto in 2 weeks, and I have never been so scared in my life. So I just didn't know if you were a fellow Baroque player or not. So
so where's
that's
that
great.
gonna be presented? Is this going to be on internet as well?
Yeah, I probably can't stop it, but if I'll, I will publicize when it's recorded. But it's with our Baroque Chamber Orchestra, and so
Wow.
we're recording it in 2 weeks. And but you're exactly right. The even just playing this Baroque instrument, you realize exactly every point you just made because you can't play a long line. You can't play. You have to be delicate even between half steps, and so much of what we look at the scores in Baroque music and we think, oh, they didn't write anything. But all you have to do is play it on a Baroque instrument, and you realize they wrote everything into the part, and you will either play it according to how that instrument wants to play it, or you'll fail. So
Yes,
so it's
yes,
been a learning experience for myself here. Oh,
absolutely.
you also have been successful in competitions. So how has that impacted your training and your career?
Well, I had two parents who were pretty against competition for a long time. My mom always told me competitions are for horses, when they and musicians are all about art, and you shouldn't combine the two and have this like nasty competitive energy that she didn't value. But we were very different people, my parents and I. So I had quite an amazing time doing competitions because oftentimes, well, of course, we have recitals at school, and then not much. We don't have 45 minutes of pick your own pieces and that's your show. I never cared too much about who else was in those competitions. I was not that type of person, but what an amazing opportunity to have an audience there. And I love the fact that we are constantly disadvantaged because we bring that enormous instrument. People are like, what is this? What is this going to do? And then I mostly pick cello pieces. So, and pieces that I just loved. There are some pieces that are required, and it's pretty free. So I played tango a lot. I played French music, Ravel. I played whatever I felt that I could play well, and I had a blast playing. And the type of preparation is something else. You prepare audition a certain way. You prepare competitions another way for the endurance, for the stage presence, so I always loved defending the bassoon and be like, you are going to be impressed that you don't know it yet, and go with a stage presence and convince them that yes, they're flutes, they're violins, they're singers, they're pianists, but this instrument can do amazing things, especially for those like career grants that were all together, all those instruments together. So it did free me a lot musically because it's your show. You can interpret the way you want. And I usually combine, because you have to be in very, very good shape, auditions or like orchestral or opera auditions near a competition. So sometimes when we're very hyper focused on practicing excerpt, I feel that I'm getting more and more in the box, and those phrases are so playing concertos opened up the creativity. You can blow freely. Oh, so that was a good balance for me as well. Plus, again, I'm coming from Argentina. My parents are immigrants. I felt the need to participate financially if I could. So the best way for me to do that was to win competitions. I won $40,000 total doing competitions. I bought a bassoon with that. So my parents didn't have to worry about that. So that's more the pragmatic side. Obviously, after that, you're in the newspaper. I mean, obviously, we're bassoon players and we remain bassoon players. I didn't have to be like, oh, don't take, I didn't sign autographs. It's not like that. But yes, you have a certain type of attention that you wouldn't have otherwise. You're called for gigs, you're called from orchestras. It gives you opportunities that are very interesting, and it gives, yeah, you can sit with your music and be your own, deciding your aesthetic. And we rarely have the opportunity to do that, because when we're learning music for an excerpt or for an audition, there's a certain way that people like, and there's a certain way of playing this, and Bach is like this, and Tchaikovsky 4 is like that. And so in solo competitions, I felt that it was my time to discover what my voice is and what I like, and what, at the end of the day, what will make me win a job later, and what will make me stay in a job later. If I want to be a principal, I need to be a soloist, and that goes together. So that's how I discovered what my cards are, what my voice is. So it's crucial to me as a bassoon player, even though, yeah, we're not going to be international stars and soloists, but those moments and advancing and playing more rounds and having an audience and having to engage them is very, very valuable in the type of skills that we develop doing that.
And one more aspect of your career that takes you down yet another path is your work with the Santa Fe Opera. Um, how would you characterize the difference between your work on stage with an orchestra and your work in the pit with an opera company?
It's very different. And again, that's what I love about my situation. I had the opportunity of touching here and there what it is to play in a chamber orchestra, what it is to play in a large orchestra. And then in the pit is much different. In the pit, you play operas that are extremely long, sometimes 5 hours and a half. And I never sat 5 hours and a half on my chair, just straight. So the type of endurance physically, but mental capacity of focusing for that long, when it's not only it's changing every bar, the tempo, the character, so you have to be constantly on. And what is difficult, and especially the first summer, what do you do when instead of playing 3 times or 4 maximum times in an orchestra, your symphony, you play it at most 4 times and then you're done. Then when you have to play it in a summer 12 times, we have 5 operas. So we played 12 times one, then 6 or 5 times the other one. And so you have repetition going on. So how do you remain interesting, and how to remain engaging for yourself and for others? Because you never want to turn your brain off and be like, well, I know this piece now, I can think about anything else I want. And the singers, you don't see them, and there's this spontaneity. Every night is different. Sometimes because the pit in Santa Fe, the venue is outside. So yes, we're covered, but not the sides. So if there is rain and enough wind, we get that. So the strings, sometimes the show never stops. The strings come behind us and still play. So sometimes I feel that I'm the soloist because the strings are behind me in this tight space. So it's very different to prepare for an opera, because in order to even be able to know the piece well, you have to listen to it many times, and many times you do like 4 hours per how many times you have to listen. It's a lot of time you have to mark. That's how I really started understanding the value of opening a score and writing everything that is going on, because my concentration cannot take that much. One different opera every night, plus rehearsing something else during the day. I never had that much amount of music, and especially you have to know the story because you have to match the character. So that's also an opera. You can be your own little soloist there, because character is crucial. And even though it's called the pit, for me it's very rewarding. Even though people don't see you, but it's a collaboration that is so incredible. People who are making the sets, people who are making the costumes, the singers, the pianists that are the different conductors, one after the other, one every night. So it's just great music in general. And my teacher at Curtis always told me, if you're going to play the Mozart concerto, listen to every single Mozart opera. And I did, but there's something else about playing it and experiencing a full opera, and being in the pit at the end of La Boheme, and you still have people crying every night in the pit. You never get tired. You know she's going to die. You know that. And there's something that is so powerful about it. So yes, it's how to make your playing interesting after 12 times. That's in the concentration. That I would say those two things, and the preparation, the amount of work you have to put up front, that sometimes in my work ethic, after a few rehearsals, I'm going to know it. It doesn't work like that in opera. You have to be so prepared. And I should have learned that earlier.
Well, I am exactly that person sobbing at the end. I know that Butterfly's going to die too, and in the middle of Act One, I'm like, oh no, 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 it's happening right now. So, but especially with Puccini, because he always uses his musical motives over and over through the opera. So if you know this music is foreshadowing that, you're a basket case. So,
And
but
the styles, the Puccini, your vibrato going on, and then the next day is Handel. You
right.
have to be a total different player, and the next day is Janacek. It's great bassoon playing.
And
So
do they still for quite a while Hans Werner Henze was associated with Santa Fe. Have you played any of his operas while you've been in there?
no, I
Yeah,
was
because I actually the first time I went to Santa Fe Opera, it was a Henze opera, and it was amazing, and luckily there was no rain, so everybody sat where they were supposed to sit. Um, okay, so we're going to go into the playing soon, because we've got several people on deck, but I've got a couple questions in the chat.
I didn't
I'm
know.
not sure which one to go to first. How about while I'm getting the first student in here, Ben, to come in, why don't we take the first question, which is, what techniques have you found in your years of playing that significantly transformed or helped make your practicing more efficient?
Should I talk about this now or while?
Yes, because I'm going to go get Ben now.
Okay, so the technique that changed my life was taught to me for specifically fingers. So it's important to when you have I see. So it's in person. Okay, good. So for technique, I used to do like everybody else and put my metronome and go a little bit more. So I couldn't trust myself enough for high pressure situations, because when you are playing fast music and you miss 3 times and you get it once and you miss again and you get it 2 more times, if I ask you, do you think you'll get it next time, the day of the audition? Well, how do you want to say yes for sure if you heard yourself miss half of those times? So that technique was shown to me by Eugene Isotov, in fact, the oboe player. And so you never hear yourself miss. I don't practice technique with my reed and I don't blow in my instrument. I put my part on my stand, and I don't know if you guys use the name of the notes in solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, or ABC. I prefer do, re, mi, fa, sol. So if it's example Figaro, I'm going to go so slow with very like drastic changes of notes. I'm going to name the notes at the same time as I move at a speed that is absolutely impossible for me to not get it. So I never develop tension in my body. My brain has time to even visualize the next movement in between because it's that slow. Do it for 15 minutes at a time, no more, because your brain is going to be fried. But it would be an equivalent of this if it was Figaro. Ré, do, ré, do, ré. That's slow, and you respect the rhythm. And then you don't have to go a little bit faster, a little bit. You go from that to the speed eventually, and you will feel that it's the same feeling of complete relaxed, easy, smooth technique, but you have to go and use those fingers a little heavy on the bassoon. So clap it. And that to me was what made the difference between having talent and a good technique and making sure that I knew that nothing could, under pressure, if I practice this way for a long time, there's not enough amount of doubt or pressure or anything that can make me miss. So I would sit there and know for a fact that I would get that excerpt. And that builds the confidence tremendously. And I swear, it's not fun. It's not like, oh, hee hee ha ha, this exercise is fun, but I promise you this will give you results, and you will feel that you have like a butter technique, that you can go as fast as you want and that you feel as relaxed as ever, like playing slow music.
Okay, so the first performer we have today is Ben, who's a sophomore, and as I think I mentioned in your in my first email to you that three of the sophomores who will be playing for you today are playing a jury in a couple of weeks where they play exposition of the Mozart concerto, a piece of their choice, and then 6 standard excerpts. So we have all 6 prepared for you, and two per. And so Ben has recorded Bolero and Beethoven 4, and I will start with Bolero first. I got to share the screen here. And then, whoops. Once we play this, then we'll take live critiques for Ben. Okay, so. Okay. Whoop, sorry. Too many buttons there. So Ben is ready to take critiques. I'll get out of the way and get behind, and so you can
Nice to meet you, Ben.
Nice to meet you too. Bye.
Great job. So, it's good that we can have a pre-recording and then a work. So, why do you think that this excerpt is asked?
For technique purposes and expression purposes, and the high notes and everything.
High notes, yes, high notes. And technique in what way?
The smoothness of your intervals between notes. You're making sure your tonguing is clear and you make clear accents and everything.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I can think of at the top of my head right now.
Okay, so it's interesting your answer, because when I hear and especially see you play, I feel like your number one priority is maintaining the beat.
Yeah.
And you didn't mention that when I asked you why is this asked. So above everything, you place that.
Mm-hmm.
From what I see.
Yeah.
So you would be right to say to be kind of rigid with the beat, because yes, bolero is one of those excerpts when people are tapping in the jury just to see if you can do it and if you can be free within the structure. And that's the type of also excerpt that is not only us, there's an A solo, there's a B solo, and all share it in the orchestra. So we all spend the ridiculous amount of time trying to make this sound good. So you do a good job maintaining that beat, but you're so worried about that it's in the way. So if you are beating with your whole body, there's no way that you can achieve what you want, which is smooth lines and care for the accent and the high notes, because every time you're beating where you break your air as well.
Yeah.
And you become beaty, which is exactly the opposite of what you just mentioned. So I agree with you. We need to conserve, to maintain that beat. But over that, we need the very smooth, delicate, also is Ravel, French music. There is a lot of room for manipulation of air, the ins and outs. So it's almost sensual in a lot of those places. So how can you just play the first line and make sure that you're not your own obstacle physically?
Okay.
Good. So let's talk about those accents that you mentioned, that you want to define them. So you have a smooth line, plus you have an accent. What type of accent are you looking for there?
I'm doing
so many accents possible. You have a Stravinsky accent. You have so many this is just a symbol. Now I want to be convinced by you verbally and also musically, because I have a different idea of what this accent should be like. So what are you looking for?
Oh, I was just doing a breath accent. I never really thought of different types of, characteristic accents, like a Stravinsky accent, a Ravel accent. I never really thought of it much deeper than just a breath accent.
So I did a little bit of martial art. And I feel like you're like, this is almost elbowing my nose, which we still want to remain a little sensual there. Plus, it's the first time that this solo appears in the orchestra. The first time that we hear that, we're still in the soft dynamic. So to me, that type of accent is a little out of place right now. Instead of going for the front, and why don't you give a little bit more of a, like the air from the sides, and instead of using, again, hit in the front, do it with your vibrato. Try to do, instead of you can lean on it and excite the vibrato.
Okay.
So you have a non-aggressive tool to make that note pop out.
Okay.
So the singing quality needs to remain. So we're gonna change before we go for that accent, just the way we start. So it's soft. Have you played in the orchestra?
Not bolero, no.
It's that type of thing that the percussion player is like using like nothing, and you're like, oh, should I? There's no sound. Like there's a little dead of like it feels that you're walking on eggshells a little. So you want to, plus it's a high solo, it's a beautiful range for us. You want to just appear and blossom from there. You don't want to be like, and I'm here. So can you air attack? So we have a smooth.
Okay.
Make sure that within that accent, we're not also breaking that line. Lean on it, so sing through it and excite it with that vibrato. It was much better. It was much more in the spirit of it.
Okay. Ah.
Keep going. Okay, we're gonna stop that. So how are you going to be interesting in those high notes? So there's something about it that is very insisting. Pam, pam, pa, 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 pa. So yeah, we have that, and that you do that well. So how do we make room to grow now? Da, da, dum. Go back, because then you have a lot more room to expand. So if you just are keeping that forte note, pa, pa, it lacks a little refinement. Da, da, dum. Less, more, and then, okay, we're gonna stop there, and I'll say the next thing.
Okay. Do you want like pounding on a door type of deal, or just?
You don't have to. It's not nothing about it is aggressive. It's insisting, but it's still in a sweet range of the instrument. Again, the first time we hear that singing, that's the word. You still have to have that smoothness, but that repetition of duplet, triplet, just make it a little bit more insisting, because then we're going to go back to that note, go back to the note, and then fall from there. So there is a way to be insisting and singing at the same time without mixing that with aggressiveness.
Okay.
that accent on the G,
Mhm.
but I'm not hearing accent, accent, no accent. So ba da da, no accent, and then you have it displaced in the G.
Okay. Okay.
If you want it to be, again, all of those musical ideas, I can give you suggestions, but if you don't like it, you play it for 5 minutes and you never play it again. I'm not going to be offended. So if you wanted to have more Ravelish movement, it's very rare that in French music you have like straight line and it just goes up and down and you blow through. You have a lot of movement. So you can loop there. So I can lean, but I don't have to hit, and I can go as if I was about to hit it again, but at the last minute take it away. So you make a so it gives you the flow to get to that G.
Okay. I'm gonna try that again.
Yes. Huh? So slow motion, that's how you would do it. So it's like a subito go away, like it's you're feeding the previous note. Feed it. So I excite your vibrato, and when you land, you remove the air, so it loops.
Okay. I guess I'm not really. I can hear what you're doing. I don't know how to produce that in my own playing, I guess. What are you doing with your air and your mouth and everything?
So I'm faking that I'll hit it even harder. So if I don't do anything, I'm just growing.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be very quick with my air to shift it. So it's done with the air. So in the vibrato. So the previous note, which is that B flat, I'm going to spin it. So it seems that I'm going for it. So I'm going to spin it with a crescendo mixed with faster vibrato. So I spin. So slow motion, it sounds disgusting, but it's... So that's how you spin. But we're going to remove that airspeed when you land. You're now soft and you have a different type of vibrato. So you have a contrast that is done within a second. Ta-ya, ta-ya. So that's the in and out that people talk about in French music. It's fast air that is taking away immediately.
Okay. Okay, I can try that and I'm gonna try it with just isolating the B flat and the D flat. Okay.
So just land on it. Delicately, just. reactivate pretty quickly your air. So now you have a loop. So you go up and we reactivate the air to go towards that G. So if you do it on your, I often blow on my hand to see what it feels like, what I want for my wind, my air. So you have to feel a hole in airspeed on that B flat, and then immediately you reactivate it and you start blowing again.
Okay. Do you want me to play just the entire phrase and try to incorporate that? Okay.
Yeah. And now we're going to change color.
And what I'm going to do is, Julia, let's keep going with this one, and maybe we won't do the Beethoven 4 because we still have more people to play. But I don't want to interrupt this, so let's just keep
And
going.
please let me know, because with minutes I'm bad at it.
Yeah, well,
Make it
let's
go,
finish.
yeah.
Let's finish this, and then we'll
Okay, that's
go.
fine.
So we have the maximum amount of exotism there. So it's not just a bunch of notes in a row. It has some content of, I think, very exotic and very sensual in a way. So don't just blow through. We're gonna change the air as well. So we have, and I'm going to talk about those ins and out. If you're just, I'm not imitating you, like, it's just too Germanic of your way of using your air. So, did you say something?
Oh no, I just said okay.
Okay. You can play with that air. So how are we going to do that? We're going like that syncopation, yampa, yampa. So we want to have a M. You don't want to stay in a vowel. You're staying in the vowel. So you have to musical comma, wait on the B flat. You see it? Do you understand what I mean?
A little bit. Is it? Could you explain it in a different way?
Yes. So if I end on a consonant that can resonate, I can still sing on that M. Bum, bum, but it has closure that your vowel doesn't have. Ba, ba, bum, bum. So you need that closure to be able to have that syncopation. So if you sit on and you blow through a vowel, then you're breaking the rhythmical tool that he's giving you to be da-dee-da-dum-pa. So how it's going to sound, the difference is, that's your version.
Okay.
we're gonna make it warm as we can. So it's not only tone, it's type of vibrato, right? I'm going to do that lift again. Because we want to aim. So lift that air again. Make a little hole in the air. Basically soft, but I don't like to call it like that. And we're gonna lean, we're not gonna hit. So
Did you
when
say
we lean,
lean or hit as a question, or was that just rhetorical?
the what?
Sorry, never mind.
So when you say lean,
No, I heard it wrong, and then I realized what I heard wrong, and then was okay.
So we're gonna do that with weight and with vibrato, not with like focus, like laser focus.
Okay. I'll try that.
And then, so in that accent, avoid spending too long on that note, like just sitting on it. So we're gonna lean with weight, but not with length. We're gonna, in fact, yes, with like 20% more length, but not like 40% more length. And then the end, we're gonna make sure that we do it as simple as possible because the excitement was before. We're gonna slowly let that solo, the place for somebody else to pick up from that. So we make it simple but warm. So use that vibrato to make it round and warm, but continue the line with a big decrescendo at the end. Your spotlight is over.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. I think we have to move on to the next player. But
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
okay, so the next person who has recorded something is Emily, and she has recorded a audio file of Tchaikovsky 4. So let me get that first. And I also have to share the screen again. So and check for. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so Emily, are you ready?
Yes, hello.
Okay.
Hi.
Great.
Great job. Very, very beautiful. Let's start by the very end. Are you using what's your fingering for that F? And what do you do with it?
I did not use a fingering for that.
You don't do the diminuendo with it?
No, I am familiar with the I do sometimes use the middle finger and roll it over the um,
So
middle.
one finger.
Yeah. The second finger.
So
And then
only
I
one finger. So if you do it with one, it's going of what hand?
my left hand.
So, and you didn't do that in the recording?
No.
Okay, so because you're going like your pitch fluctuates. So why don't you try because that will make it also fluctuate. If you use one finger only, it's a little risky. I would simultaneously use those two fingers simultaneously to not go sharp and flat, like you compensate.
Okay.
Can you try that on the F?
Yeah.
What's that face for?
Oh, I liked it. I've never used that before. I've only ever used the left.
You're the first person in my life who likes something like this.
I'm sorry. I, it was a
You loved it.
sorry.
No. I'm joking. I just thought you hated it or something. To me, this sounds much more even in pitch. The diminuendo is great. Now we're going to. Are you counting in your head? Those
Yeah.
clum. Okay, so I would make sure that we use as many tools, musical tools as we can to make it to absolute niente. So not only we're gonna do that, what we did here, an incredible diminuendo, we're gonna, there are three pits. So use your vibrato and non-vibrato for the last pit. So it's going from warm to cold and it dies.
Okay. Okay. You want me to try that?
Yeah. One more time. Yeah. So I like a lot of what you did in the solo. We're gonna try to make it be more in phrases. I tend to feel in your playing as well. You land on certain beats, and I start feeling your pulse. Your pulse is something you should have internally. On top of that, you sing. So it gives you structure, but you have to be flexible in that. I shouldn't be feeling your pulse as well. So we're going to try to remove that. It is already incorporated in you, so you don't. We have to just remove it from the air. So so we are playing after long F. You have a little bit of time. What's your fingering for the C sharp?
Just the short.
Right,
1, 2, 3.
exactly. So you want it as muffled and so. What are you gonna do to make a moment of that entrance? You can take a tiny bit of time and make it very intimate. And then you can go, but like pull a little back and then go.
Okay.
a lot of the time when string players play, even singers, they start vibrating before they put their bow on their strings. Vibrate before the sound happens, not the third note when you remember it. You cannot start dry and then warm. It has to be, your entrance is a big deal, especially there. So we want color from the start. So vibrate before you create that sound in your head, and then you blow, and it's tangible. So we're gonna color it first, then you blow. Okay. We don't want to sound like this. You want to color that first note as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so the danger, because of the range, is to conclude a phrase or resolve, because it's a little lower in the range. We don't want to have that last resolution be louder than the rest. So we have to make a special, bring the attention to really close that phrase and land softly. So I don't hear enough of the you want to close it.
Okay.
So yeah, in order to close, you have to lean a little more on the top, right? So be generous, because you're still doing an arch, right? You're still in the top of that arch, so don't collapse. Just to make sure that you have a piano. Then we're going to start a long phrase, because that last F is your beginning. So it gives you the opportunity, when you're soft, to start from soft and really have a 4-bar long line. And then so that B flat is a big deal. If we simplify that line, lean, clip, resolution.
Okay. That makes sense. Do you want me to play that whole phrase again and try that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Clip it a little with an M. Very fast breath now, because we all think that we have an eternity to breathe, but it has to be within that phrase. we're gonna aim for that C now. We have to have the maximum expression. Now we're gonna look for how we're gonna play that phrase and change the color. We don't want to play exactly the same way every time. So what is your special moment from now to the end of that solo? What's the change of color? How are you going to be particularly interesting?
I think like my special moment are those E flats. Those are more like personal and intimate.
Okay, so how?
I try to make those a little more intimate than the repeated Fs and the repeated D flats.
Okay, so I didn't hear that, but let's make it be like that if that's what you want. Because remember, in auditions, if you play what's on the page, you play probably more than everybody else already. So it's great. If you play exactly like good control, good pitch, good rhythm, good everything, you don't lose. But you don't win either. So
Right.
in order to win, I need you to tell me exactly why they should not only pass you, but you should win. Right now, you should have a plan where you have the magic moments, colors, something that is yours, that it will bring this excerpt to life in a way that is very personal to you. So that's in the second half that we have the most opportunities to do that. So if those are E flats or precious to you, I want to hear that.
Okay. Do you want me to start on the
F da 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 dee dum. So verbally, what did you, because I'm still not hearing that those are different.
yeah.
So if you want to be more intimate, music is always about contrast. If you need to be intimate, something has to be more expressive and more out there. So now your phrases are going in the same type of arch. Nothing is particularly out, nothing is particularly intimate. So we're going to expand your range of expression. We're going to use dynamic, vibrato, different colors. So in the first time you get to those F, go further so you can have room for those E flats. And I do it in the next one. So you can do it where you want, but first of all, you're going to have to go quite more in those Fs. Excited with the vibrato if you want. Lean on that. And then so we have again vibrato resolution. So we want to make sure that those are not equal. One is squeezed, the other one is resolved. So we're going to do that dissonance and those squeezing, we do that with vibrato, less vibrato.
Okay. The vibrato's on the squeezy one, right?
Squeeze, yes.
Okay.
speed up everything, and we're gonna do that same thing quite faster for an exercise. Do that fast.
Okay.
So it's in you to want to do yum bum ba and at any speed. So we have to make sure that yes, we want to be expressive, but right now you're going out of the range that the orchestra allows you. The strings da 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 la da. So da 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 da. Yes, you have to use those notes to direct them, and you are directing them. But now it's yum boom boom. It's a little much. Even when it's fast, you distortion the pulse. You want to arrive anyway. You want to arrive to that third F and sing it. So the big deal isn't in those repeated ones. Is to arrive. How are you going to arrive? Not how. Like,
Right.
keep the flow.
Okay. All right. Can I try that?
That's much better, much better. And now, when you do arrive, we're going to blow through. And when you arrive at the front of that note. Dum, bum, ba, bum, bum, dee, dum. Sing through it because you still want to cover that. It's around. So that will give you the expressiveness as well. How you're going to squeeze that top two and sing through it and then release it down. Scale down. So if you just focus on the front of that note and then it's straight decay,
Yeah.
it's missing the juice of that note that I want to hear.
I know what you mean. Okay.
Very good, very good. And now we're going to change one more thing. La da da da, squeeze, release. Now those notes, it's just a one line that is too direct. So the expressiveness that there's pain in there. Don't miss your opportunities to make it as painful as you can. And then from that, again, you have another one. And then you can create color by doing the same thing. You are aiming for it, but you are not going to hit it. You're going to get away and change your vibrato.
Okay. So are you on the after the repeated D flats and then the downbeat, the da 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 da, did you mean no vibrato on that note, or and that's how we're changing the vibrato?
No, we still have vibrato. We just change the type of vibrato. So when you want a moment, you have to have several things going on because one is not enough. So we're going to change the type of vibrato, we're going to change the dynamic of it, we're going to attack it, but the most D, you know, not a T, a D, like soft, attacked, soft consonant. And we're going to start mixing all of our tools. So we twice, we were aiming bum 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 bum. We expect bum 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 bum. Plus the harmony, with that harmony under us from the strings, bum bum. So we have room for surprising there because we're gonna change the pattern of air. Bum bum bee, bum bum bee. And you're gonna color to the very end, big decrescendo.
Okay. Okay. Do you want me to do the whole phrase or just those?
And that's another one, by the way.
Please release, you mean?
Fast vibrato release. So squeeze, and use every single opportunity you have to squeeze the expression out of that phrase.
Okay. Okay.
The same way we started, we're going to end. The three rules for a phrase for elegance: how you start, how you develop, how you end. So all of that needs to be colored and warm. So it's very obvious if we start or end kind of dry, and the whole thing you're singing, and it's like a conductor who ends like this. You have this for a reason.
Yeah.
You never have it. Okay, whatever. That was the end of the note. So we were gonna care very much for the last note. That's how you leave, especially when you're not even in the orchestra, you're alone on stage. After you, it's silence, absolute silence. So the way you end is very much noticed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you want me to try it again? Or
Yeah. And you have another one.
okay. All right. Do you want me to go? You want me to do that one?
Right there, at the end.
At the end? Okay.
Stay on the meat of the note a little longer, because I'm like, ah.
Oh, no.
So you're
Okay.
dying a little soon. Ba-da-dum-ba-glum, glum. Nothing. On the third one. So remain there a little more, so we hear that note, you hear the vibrato, and we hear it go away. Yes, but too long.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I prefer too long than too short, and like in the orchestra, you would know when to stop. I still counted for an addition, but that's the idea. That's a very beautiful diminuendo. Do it one more time so we have it the way we want. Yes, very beautiful.
I think, Emily, we're going to have to move on. So thank you so much for that. Okay.
Oh,
So next will be Aaron. So Aaron, if you could come to the studio, we'll have you play. And in the meantime, we can go to that other question that Daniel had posed before in the chat. Like, how do you believe, as classical musicians, we can make our art form more relatable or meaningful to wider audiences today? Just a short little question.
okay, read that again.
How do you believe, as classical musicians, we can make our art form more relatable or meaningful to wider audiences today?
Well, first of all, I think diversity has been ignored in our field. We are not representing our audience almost at all. And so, yes, we're doing some contemporary music, but where is, the music written by women or by people of color so there is a certain repertoire that we keep playing and playing and playing, and we're not thinking bad. Well, time is passing. Who is coming to our hall? Are we playing music that people can relate to? I don't think so anymore. So something that I made sure, and I see that there are people from everywhere now in the class, don't forget your cultural background. Never let it go. Never. So even in my classical background, I kind of imposed it at first. Now people start talking about, whoops, what did we do with diversity? Now we have like, ooh, the society is changing and we have to catch up. But it's our job to value, first of all, our own and others, to keep promoting. That's why I said when I auditioned, I started being very in love with the instrument because I was playing tango pretty much non-stop at home. Tango and folk music from my country, whatever it is that represents you. We have a very, very homogeneous, the musician on stage. If you look around, if you have 4 people who are not exactly like everybody else, is already impressive. So we have a responsibility, each one of us, to yes, learn what classical music wants us to learn, and also to bring our cultural background so we can make it richer and people can learn from us, because now we have to interpret, sometimes I hear, sometimes it's me, I don't interpret jazz the way, because I didn't grow up with it. So somebody has to teach me how, and that was not taught at Curtis. So we have to make sure that we interact with our peers, that we learn from each other, and that we're proud of what we bring. We bring all this diversity. So I think ideally I would love to see a musical field turning towards new music, and music that was already written many, many years ago that was completely ignored because composer needed to be male and white. So be interested, go and find that music, play it, put it out there, start promoting it, and again, go back to your root and ask questions. Who are you? Ask your parents. Go and travel, see how music is played. There's so much more than just, our music is pretty simple. Music, folk from everywhere in the world is such rich music that now we just start turning our heads towards that. So be ahead of your time. Be the one who is actually putting it up front. So I always brought tango. That was my thing. But there's so much out there. Be curious and play music that truly excites you.
Julia, that's so great that you've done that. We've been trying to do that all year, especially with a project that we were doing about exactly that, our own identities, and also playing things that completely outside of our identities, to try to understand someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. A great idea. So we
So,
become the student and we look at somebody who maybe were marginalized before that
right,
now become our teacher.
right.
So yes, I encourage that so much.
So, despite that, we have one more very, very commonly played excerpt, the Tchaikovsky Six, right now, and this is Aaron back here. So, I'm going to again go out of the screen and put my mask back on. So, why don't you play a few notes, Aaron?
Great. Remind me your name.
Aaron.
Aaron with an N?
Yes.
Good. Awesome. Great job. So that excerpt personally used to be the one like I see the list, I'm like, no, please. So when you started playing, and again, I don't know you, I don't know you're playing. The way you started, I was like, I would be scared because you breathe and you move, and then I see you stuck the air, and then you attack it with your tongue, and you hope it's going to come out, and it didn't come out. I thought it wouldn't. So now it's like the circus. Like, will it come out? You're playing quite generously, so I think there is not a problem of like for the note speaking. But if you had to play that quite softer, because it is quite softer, you have only like a few people playing in your left corner there. If you breathe and you have a movement and then it's very dangerous. So we need that relax, breathe, blow, breathe like you would in any other piece, I think, unless you do that all the time. But yeah, so there's something about the fear factor, like this is a hard note to play. Now I have to tense everything. You're counterproductive. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the chances in our corner. I like that you're weren't stiff. A lot of people just stay there and they just wait in silence and like, it's so scary to me. So you're going to cue yourself in even more than you just did. We're going to make sure that when we're playing in the low, that's not my thing to play in the low register. I'm a principal. When I have to do that, I'm like, shouldn't be a second bassoon thing. Like, I don't want to do this. But we're going to cue, so we have that movement and that flow will be translated in your air, because if your body is doing something, your air shouldn't be doing something else. So cue yourself while you breathe and attack without that stop. exercise. And why is it that I don't see what people write in the chat? Is there a way to do that I could see people's answers if I ask a question?
If you just, well, so far there's only been those two
Okay.
things. If you click on chat, does that open up your chat window?
Yeah, but I see nothing. But okay, so
Oh.
I'm just gonna play with this game with you then, Aaron.
Oh, wait, I know, because they sent them as direct messages to me. Sorry.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. So now we're gonna play a little game, okay?
Okay.
For like 2 minutes. You're going to tell me what I'm about to play. Okay? What is that? If you don't know the exact piece, describe it.
Something loud and fast.
Loud and fast. Again. Loud and fast. Any other answers from anybody else in the chat? I'm gonna give it a second.
I'm thinking.
Okay. So I'll play what I was about to play, okay? Okay? So now, what am I going to play? What is that?
Maybe bolero?
So can you describe what that, instead of pinpointing a piece, what is a characteristic of it? So if I do
Legato? Probably.
Legato?
Even though that doesn't match bolero.
Can you repeat your answer?
Probably some soft.
Okay. Soft and, did you say legato? Lyrical, mezzo piano? I see people. So yes, exactly. So are you reading my mind or what's going on? Like, how do you know this?
I'm looking at your movement and hearing your breath.
Yes. So if I play in an orchestra, before the sound even comes out of my instrument, I'm already communicating dynamic, tempo, character, when I will attack. So the type of the spirit of it, and you guessed it all right, and you don't know me, I didn't even play. So that information is for my colleagues. That information is mainly for myself, because I'm already in the music before it starts. The breath is what precedes the music. The breath is already in the mood, the sound, the character, the tempo. So when you play, and I'm like, wow, what is this music going to be like? I would never guess in a million years that you're about to play Tchaikovsky's 6. I'll be like, like it would be something else. So now we're gonna shift that body language and we're gonna adapt it so what you create later matches what you have in mind. So if you're gonna breathe and move like that, you will not be able to play differently than what you just did with your. So now when I say cue, you see when you move your hand when you sing, so instead of ba-da-da, so cue yourself. It can be gentle and you see, like there is no need for after the rock band ends the concert, they like break the guitar and they'll like there's just none of that going on. It's Tchaikovsky's 6. So move in the character. To me, that was much better already. So now, what's your general dynamic? What is it?
Pianissimo.
Yes. So when you crescendo within piano, you're still in the character and color piano. Piano is not only a dynamic, piano is a mood and color. So we're gonna make sure that you can still phrase, and I hear your phrasing clearly. So we're gonna make sure that we remain phrasing within that piano soft character. Now you're saturating your notes. When you crescendo, you not only go too far in your crescendo, but you're using your vibrato in the right way, meaning you're activating it so you can grow. But now you're, instead of growing and then going back, you're growing. So like, whoa! So we're gonna make sure that we bring that back so we don't saturate it. So either you don't push as much with your dynamic and you still use that vibrato to excite it, but I think that will be enough to color it. You don't have to do both full on. So we're gonna maybe remove some of that crescendo dynamic. We're gonna phrase with vibrato. Yes, that's a million times better. So you can have a little room to do what you were doing before, the last intervention. And now I would place it instead of place it. So you have the cushion that gives you the weight and the wait a bit. Decrescendo. There's a little bit of a placement. So up, down, and another one of those pa. Good. How are we going to make sure that the last bit of it doesn't kind of shake? So the vibrato and the pitch should remain the same to the end. So when you are blowing through a decrescendo, make sure that you have less volume of air because it's a decrescendo, but that your air speed remains. So compensate a little bit more air speed so you don't lose that note. And the vibrato is very related with air speed as well. So maintain it active. There much better, much better. And that, when we land on that beat, would you remove the front? So I hear such a T, ta. We want to land again, like we were talking about earlier, the air from the side, you know, like how, like the waves in the, instead use your air and less consonant, more volume of air, so it doesn't hit so abruptly. Yeah, maintain to the end. Yeah, and next intervention.
I'm afraid we're going to have to.
Okay, sorry.
Well, I've got one more person, and
Okay, cool.
it's we were getting so much great information early on. So sorry everybody to be rushing near the end like this. But thank you, Aaron, and I'm going to share just Daniel recorded that Biche etude, so I can share that video.
Okay.
So let me just find that. Here we go.
Great. I'm
And
going to give a medal for even choosing to play this. I didn't know this, and I asked you for the part. I'm like, who is this person who chooses to play? So this is very impressive, very great.
and there are 20 of those etudes, so any one of those would have been equally impressive. So I'll let you talk to Daniel.
Where is Daniel? There you are. Cool. Great job. So is there a way I can see you not in the small thing, or?
If Daniel, if you play, you'll be full. You'll be the main screen there.
Great. Awesome. Where are you from?
Florida.
Florida. Awesome. Cool. So awesome job in those high and incredible, crazy notes. So how many times did you record this before you were like, I'm gonna send this?
Many.
Yeah, I was practicing it today. I was like, I'm not going to be giving any examples on this. So it's great. Though that's a like showy, high note and technical etude. We have to make sure that when we when we choose to do something like virtuosic, that we never put the virtuosity in front, and because the more you put the virtuosity up front, the more I'm looking for it. So then any type of mistake, and not that you made mistakes or anything, but any type of mistake is much more noticed than if you're like, look, I'm putting music way up front, and then I took a risk and it didn't work, and people excuse that all the time. And if you're playing this in front of a non-bassoonist, they would never know that those high notes are hard or high, or like those high pitches. So you can impress us very much because we know how hard this is. If you were in front of a committee of non-bassoonists, you would have less of an opportunity to wow them with these things. So you would have to bring a lot more of musical ideas, and you had great things going on. Like you took time, and you did dynamic changes. So that's how you truly impress a musician, with musical things. So now I like the freedom you took, and I love your stage presence. And now let's go even further. So there's so much going on. I'm missing the harmony. And you're by yourself. Yes, it's allegro, but you have absolute green light of taking some time underlining harmonic changes. So we're gonna take some like little spot at a time, and I want you to show me in slow motion what you're aiming for and what is the progression harmonically. So third line at the end of, when it goes to bass clef. Slow motion. Huh?
Sorry, where?
Third line when it goes in the first bar in the bass clef. That's the longest staccato I have ever heard. Vibrated staccato, super Puccini-esque. So, okay, here, that F sharp is a big deal. So, I'm gonna put that part over here. Am I still visible?
Yeah.
I might have missed half of the notes because I'm. Brings you somewhere else when it's absolutely unexpected. You cannot just go like the train goes. You have time to underline that. Oh, we have a pattern. Ba-dum, 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 blue note. What are you gonna do at that? So. In the most lyrical way, even though it's challenging. So we're gonna go for that progression. Take a little bit of time there, because the ear does not have time to catch all of that. There's so much going on that unless you kind of stretch it when those harmonic things happen, my ear as a listener, especially if I don't know the piece and I don't expect it, I will not catch that. If you are in a hall and you play that for real in front of people and there's acoustic going on. So the more you have fast notes and crazy harmony, the least is discernible. So in general, I say that for excerpts that are fast as well, when you take an addition, everything that is fast should be in a hall, taking a little bit slower and enunciate it a little more, because your sound is spinning in there. And there's so many turns that are kind of weird in here. We have to make sure that you're playing for your listeners. So now, right now, me, and it's not a contest of if you're hitting the right notes. It's how can you share the maximum information even though it goes by quickly.
So I'm so sorry to have to interrupt, because I would love this to go on for another 2 hours, but we unfortunately have to close. So Julia, this has been fantastic. You're such an expressive person, not just an expressive musician, and I wish we had so much more time to spend together, and I'm so glad you were able to share your afternoon with us. Everyone, please show your thanks to our guest, and she's got wonderful videos online as well, so please check out everything that's posted up there, and we hope we can have you back again live
Thank
soon.
you so much. If you have any question, please write to me. I know that it was short at the end for people, so I feel bad I talked too much. That's my main...
No. Everything was wonderful. Thank you so much. And good night, everybody, and good night, Julia.
And great job, everybody who played. Very fantastic playing.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.